The purpose of this panel is to understand our own perspectives and have conversations about equitable conditions for all of our students. We're so grateful to have stories and experiences from some of our brave and courageous CV students. Today we're using a restorative approach with the intention of creating a community of care, connection, trust, and safety so our student panelists can speak their truth. First, we're going to introduce ourselves. Name the person that has empowered you and supported you throughout your education. That person is the person that you're going to dedicate this conversation to.
Hi, my name is Amy. My daughter is in second grade, and I'm going to dedicate today's panel discussion to my father, who is a retired science teacher, who always taught me to teach people, who taught me to encourage belonging in people, because he himself was felt othered when he was interned in an internment camp as a child.
Hear me? All right. I dedicate this to my mom and my dad for teaching me everything about being a young black man, and also for them educating me about my roots and where I come from. My name is Huston Adair, and I'm in 8th grade.
Hello, my name is Ahmad Samsor. The people that I want to dedicate this conversation to is my family and my counselor, Mr. Andrade. They have dedicated me to do this. They encouraged me to do this, and they believed in me.
My name is Fatima Althalmi. I'm in 7th grade, and I dedicate this to my mom and my sister because they've always been there for me, and they've always supported me on whatever I do. And I really appreciate that because they encourage me on everything, and yeah.
My name is David Olson. I am a special ed teacher for Cajon Valley. I'm dedicating this to my administrators, my students, fellow teachers, and the whole district, just for really always loving and supporting me.
My name is Aubryella Otero. I am an alumni of Granite Hills High School in the Cajon Valley School District, and I dedicate this conversation to my mother, who is a member of the school board and has always been a very great example to me on how to treat other people with respect and kindness, no matter what background they're from. We're going to start off with the first question, and that is, tell us an experience you've had with discrimination, and I'm going to direct that first towards Houston.
Thank you. An experience that I've had with discrimination was at school. We were doing tryouts for track and field, specifically the 100-meter dash, and I got a pretty fast time. And when I was done, I heard one of the students say that I'm only fast because of the color of my skin. And I didn't take that comfortably, but in my mind, I could understand why some people would think that, because there are some very fast people that are people of color. But at the same time, if I was white, you wouldn't say that. You would ask me, or you would say to a friend, this kid's really fast. Maybe we should ask him, how do you get this fast? And I don't really think it's okay to judge people by the color of the skin. You should judge them on the content of their character.
Right, and I know that stereotypes, I think, don't really help anyone. As an Asian woman, I know that whenever I would get a good grade on a test, people would be like, oh, it's just because she's Asian, when really I worked really hard to get good grades. I didn't really understand math as well as other people did all the time, and so I worked really hard to get good grades on tests, and so it hurt me when people would say, you only did that because you're Asian. And I don't think those stereotypes help anyone, even though they're somewhat positive, like, oh, Asians are smart, black people are fast. That's not a helpful stereotype towards anyone, and I think it really is up to us to just break down those stereotypes completely. And Fatima, I would like to ask you the question next, if you'd like to share an experience you've had with discrimination yourself.
Okay, my experience with discrimination was in the beginning of the year. We were on a Zoom call, and I got called racist names. And at first, I was really shocked because I didn't know people had the guts to say that to people, but later on I learned that it's going to have to happen to everybody and I'm going to have to go through it again, which made me feel a little better to know that people also go through the same thing. So I feel like that really helped me a lot. So that was my experience with discrimination.
Awesome. Ahmad, would you like to tell us your experience with discrimination you've had next?
The discrimination I had is in in elementary school. Kids will pick on me and they would bully me because of my English. And I didn't know anything English. I didn't know any English, so and they would bully me and they would say hurtful things such as go back to your country and go home. That made me question myself that I didn't belong at school, and that's it.
Right. I think that's really people's ignorance that pushes them to say things like that. I was adopted into a family that only speaks English, and I've only spoken English my entire life, and people have still told me to go back to my own country, which doesn't make sense to me, and I think that that really stems from ignorance. Amy, would you like to tell us an experience you or your student has had with discrimination as well?
Yeah, so I had observed an incident that I'll tell you about. I was sitting in my daughter's room during a time when she was distance learning during the pandemic, and the teacher was reading a story about Martin Luther King Jr., and after the story, one of the students said that he believed that white people were better than everyone else. And my heart just dropped, that there were kids in the classroom that were hearing this. And he and the teacher discussed it a little bit, and the teacher said, is that a belief or is that the truth? And they distinguished the difference between those two. And then ultimately she said, well, that's not the truth. And that really helped, I think, the students really feel better that it was addressed and that and how it turned out.
Right, I think that's a really effective way to teach the difference to students. David, as a teacher, would you like to tell us an experience you've personally had with discrimination as well?
Being an openly gay teacher, I have to say I've been really lucky here in Cajon Valley just for the love and respect that I've received from teachers, from the district, from students, from families. But I know when I was in junior high, I started being targeted in 6th grade for being gay. Bullied. I'd have to figure out how to get to my next class, get out of my classroom first, get through the hallways before they could find me. That really went on for years, and I see a lot of our LGBTQ youth, still struggling in similar ways, and that really worries me.
Right, and that is a big concern when it takes away from your actual schooling education to hide from people you're afraid might discriminate against you. That is a big concern, and that is something that I do feel like we're still in the midst of dealing with today. We're going to move on to our second question. I'm going to direct this one to Amy first. Tell us a story of a time when you or your student felt like you belonged at school. Who or what helped you feel this way, and what has helped you feel supported and kept safe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I asked my daughter about this. My daughter is part Native American also. So she told me that there was a time when they were talking about math, and she was able to teach the students in her classroom a little bit about decimals. And she felt supported because the students encouraged her, and they were smiling, and they were happy to hear from her. And after she was done, the teacher really thanked her for her explanation. So I think all that encouragement.
Right, encouragement from peers, that really does help. What about you, Ahmed? Have you, tell us a story of a time when you felt like you belonged at school, and what helped you feel like that?
So last year during 6th grade, I had a really difficult time in science. I didn't know what to do, and I was being hard on myself. I pushed myself harder, and I was thinking over too much. But my science teacher, Mr. Mandel, last year in 6th grade, he never stopped encouraging me. He believed in me. He made me push myself and made me challenge myself. That really helped me a lot. And that gave me a mindset that helped me a lot with science.
Right. I think that the times I've belonged most in school is when a teacher has reached out to me and personally made me feel like even if I'm struggling a little bit, they're there for me and they can provide guidance. I think that that is something that really helps a student feel like they can belong in a classroom. And Dave, you're a teacher. Would you like to tell us a story of a time when you felt like you or your students belonged, and what helped you feel this way, or what made you help them feel this way?
Well, I always go back to my first year teaching. It was Mother's Day, and I announced to everyone happily we're going to make our Mother's Day cards. And in a few seconds, one of the students started to cry because she didn't have a mom. And that stuck with me the rest of my career, that our students need validation for who they are, their families. So now I always say, like, today we're making Mother's Day cards or Father's Day cards or your 2 dad cards, 2 mom cards, your foster mom, your grandparent cards, and students are like, why does he rattle all these off? And they need that validation. So I make sure that it's my job as a teacher to create that safe place for them, to get to know them, to give them positive role models that they can look up to, and that's what I do to make sure that my students feel like they belong.
Right. And I think it's important that we acknowledge that we all come from different backgrounds. Like, even on this panel, we all come from different places, different backgrounds. We're all so different, and we all have a common goal, and I think that it's important to remember these things. Fatima, would you like to tell us a story of a time when you felt like you belonged at school, or what helped you feel this way, and what helped you feel supported and kept feeling supported?
I'd probably say the end of last year, because I really made a good group of friends who supported me and who'd made sure I was okay at certain times, and they really helped me boost my confidence, and they were just there for me all the time. And I feel like that really helped me feel belonged, because I never really had a group of friends who really supported me and made sure I was okay. So I feel like that really helped me a lot and made me feel belonged.
Right. And that help from peers is so important as well. Huston, would you also like to tell us a story of a time when you felt like you belonged at school, and what helped you feel this way?
A time that I felt like I belonged at school was a couple weeks after my first day of middle school in 6th grade. I had some friends here and there, but I didn't have friends that I could talk to on a different level, like how we are all talking about discrimination, talk to them like that. And then one time during PE, I saw a student that is now one of my best friends in the whole wide world. So after class was over, or a PE session was over, I went up to him and I was like, what's up, introduce myself. And we started talking more and more, and we became friends. Next thing you know, we're on a basketball team together, playing basketball. And now, during that time, every day that I saw him at school, it made me feel happy, whole, like I belong. Like, nothing can stop me, nothing can put me down from being at this school.
Right. Just as personal relationships can really draw us together and make us feel like we belong too. I think that we have good examples of all different types of things that can bring us closer and feel like we belong. The third question we're going to move along to, and I was going to direct this one towards Ahmed. What do you need from adults at your school or community in order to feel safe or feel like you belong?
One thing I would like teachers to know about me is ask about me and have interest about my culture and my private stories. I want an environment that has respect, caring, and loving.
Yeah, I think that we all deserve an environment like that to grow and learn in as well. Fatima, what do you need from adults at your school or community in order to feel safe and feel like you belong?
What I need from teachers or adults from my school in order for me to feel belonged is probably for them to get to know me for me and not what's on the outside and how I look. For them to get to know my culture, my family, what I celebrate, what I believe in. And I feel like that would really help me feel belonged, because they'd know what to talk about, they'd know the limits, and that really helped me a lot.
Right. And not just how you look, but also what grades you get too, right? You want them to look beyond just that outer level and see who you are as a person and really put that olive branch out to you. Houston, what do you need from adults at your school or community in order to feel safe?
I would say to check up on your students, because sometimes, home isn't the place where you feel wanted or safe. Like at my home, I feel safe, I feel wanted, I feel loved. But for some kids, school is the only place where you can really feel wanted and be yourself. Because you never know if something's wrong with your students until they show some type of emotion or some type of reaction.
Right. I completely agree, and I think it's super important just to check in and make sure that kids are mentally where they need to be learning. Amy, what do you think that you need from adults at your school or community in order to feel like your child is safe and belonged?
Yeah, I think adults and community could help by being less passive participants. Not just the belief that that you agree that everyone should belong is not enough. We should be active participants and try and nurture and safeguard the voices of marginalized groups, because the dominant voices in society will always be there. But these marginalized groups, they want to be heard, they want to be encouraged and cherished.
Right. It's so important for us to have these conversations, and it's really up to us to promote these conversations and make sure that they happen with other people and other adults and share with the community and make sure that we do provide these spaces for students. And David, as a teacher, I'm sure you have insightful details. What do you think you need from adults at your school or community in order to make them feel safe and feel like they belong?
Well, I know for me, a big growth period in this journey, I went to training at the San Diego County Office of Education about the FAIR Act. And the FAIR Act requires the inclusion of disabled Americans and LGBTQI Americans into our social studies curriculum. And so when I started doing that, I also realized that I need to do a much better job as a teacher highlighting the achievements of African Americans, of Asian Americans, of Hispanic Americans, of women, of all these groups on a daily basis, because our students need to see these positive role models. And the other big wow is for me, that if I'm highlighting the achievements of African Americans, I'm not only uplifting my African American students, but I'm also destroying negative stereotypes. And that's why it's so important for this to happen in every single classroom.
Right, I completely agree, and I think that is a big shift that needs to happen in our education in general, is that we need to see more of these examples just of diversity, and I think that really will help students feel more of a place of belonging. The next question is, what is one thing you want our listeners and community to know or do in order to understand your experiences? And I wanted to ask Fatima this question first.
Something I'd want our listeners and our community to, in order to understand my experiences, probably for them to listen to me and listen to what I have to say, because I feel like that's what I need, and it benefit both of us, because for me, it benefit me because it helped me let out my feelings to you and how I feel and how, for example, how people treat me, and it benefit you because it most likely change your perspective on how you see things and how, to know where your limits are and to know what to say to people, because you don't know if it could hurt people or not. So that's what I need our listeners and community to know.
Completely, and I think that if they take the time to understand a single person better, then they're opening their mind to a whole bunch of different ideas. I'm going to move on to Ahmad next. What is one thing you want our listeners and community to know or do in order to understand your experience?
One thing I would like to everyone is that I love this country. Just because I wasn't born here doesn't mean I'm not an American. I think of myself as American because my family and I are a very hardworking family. We contribute a lot of hard work into this country. And especially, United States isn't just the place to bully people or to make them jealous of you, or this is the time that you use for your dream. If you want anything possible, this is the place. this is a place to make your dream come true, and it's a place that is a success place, not just to bully people.
Right, and I was taught that America is the land where dreams can come true because we are a melting pot of diversity, and it is that diversity that makes us so strong as a country, and I feel like that is something that we really need to cherish. David, what is one thing you want our listeners and community to know or do in order to understand your experiences?
I think really part of that is just encouraging, parents and families to get involved in their children's schools, and really having that goal of making sure that every child in the school feels loved and safe, and just making the schools a better place.
Yeah, and Amy, as a parent, what is one thing you want our listeners and community to know or do in order to understand your experiences?
Yeah, I think that it's not always possible to really understand, but to understand that different people can have different experiences for the same environment. For instance, we live in a right-handed world, and me as a left-hander, things are very different for me. And sometimes I have challenges that right-handed people don't really have. And so to understand that and just believe when people give their experiences that those are true, and not doubt it or question it.
Right.
That would be good.
I'm left-handed too, I completely understand. Houston, what is one thing you want our listeners and community to know or do in order to understand your experience?
One thing I want our listeners and community to know, to understand, is to listen. To listen to what we're saying, because, for example, a time when I hurt my leg playing basketball, I had this giant robotic leg thing, and there were a lot of teachers and students asking me, what happened? And they were saying, oh, I'm so sorry. I don't want to hear that right now. I don't want you to feel sorry, because there's nothing that I could have done to stop it. I can't tell the future. I can't go back in the past and tell myself, hey, don't do this, because it already happened. There's nothing to feel sorry about. I don't want you to feel sympathetic because of what I did to myself. I want you to be like, don't worry, you'll be okay. You'll be better than ever when you come back and get on that court and get buckets, I guess. So that's what I want listeners and the community to understand about this panel.
Right, and it's important that we all just have more of an open mind and listen to each other to really know what we need from each other, right? And I really appreciate that. And I would like to thank all of our panelists for being here, especially the student panelists. And it is really amazing for you guys to come forward and to be here with us and talk to us today about this You Belong subject. If you have any final words, we'd like to go down the line and have you really give your final thoughts on the presentation. And Dave, I'll have you start with what your final thoughts would be on our whole subject.
I just think it's really wonderful that we're here together doing this, and I think it's really powerful, and it's such an incredible district, and I think conversations like this only make it better. So I'm just really, my heart's happy.
We have to have these conversations, yes. Right? Fatima, would you like to, your final words?
My final words are, I'm really glad I'm doing this, because in my past self, I would never thought I would be doing this right now. And I feel like when I do it, I feel like it would show people that diversity shouldn't be a thing, and discrimination shouldn't be a thing, because it's a really bad thing. And I feel like when all the people that are sitting right now, I feel like when they're doing it, they're really showing people that it's not a good thing, and you should never do it to anybody. And I feel like that's what I came here for.
Discrimination doesn't benefit anyone at all. And I think that's really important. And Ahmed, do you have any final words you'd like to share with us, the rest?
Yeah, as I said before, if we're all doing this, we're doing it together. It's not just one person doing it and fails, because we're all a team together right now. Right. And that's very good, because we needed to do this. We need to show the world that our discrimination so they can learn from us, not just bully more people.
And your guys' voices are so powerful, and they mean a lot, and you guys are doing a lot by being here and speaking on it. Houston?
One thing, or my final thoughts on this, like Ahmad said, this has to be talked about. Or he says that. This has to be talked about. Tell your kids. Don't tell them that everything's all cupcakes and rainbows. Because, especially as a person of color, you know, you feel loved and welcome when you're inside a house. But as soon as you walk out that house, nobody cares. Nobody cares who you are, where you come from. So tell your kids your origin, because none of us came from America. It started with, like I learned in history, it started with, having problems in England, right?
Right.
And then, they was like, you know what, let's find some new land. Let's come over here. And then, more and more people came into what we call America today.
Right. And we have to have these conversations. I really think it is us, to our generation and our parents' generation, to really change things and have these conversations and make it better for our future generations. Amy, do you have any final?
Yeah, this is not only information to help us encourage belonging of other people, but also it helps our kids understand how to live in a more diverse world, which will create more cooperation and unity and peacefulness in the whole world for everyone.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, prejudice doesn't help anyone, and I really think that together our generation and the generations above us really can make it better for the future generations and make it truly feel like a place where we all belong.
Okay, so I want to thank you for sharing your experiences. We see you, we hear you, and we feel you. I know this could be challenging for us, but I want to remind you that you're blazing a path for other students. So thank you. Today you've given us a call to action. To our listeners, educators, if we are to effectively improve outcomes for our children, we need to continue to bring these voices to the table. We have to be willing to listen, even if what they say makes us uncomfortable. Thank you, educators who are listening today, for listening today.